Marcus Reed had learned a long time ago that some people only noticed a waiter when they needed something. A glass of water, a fresh napkin, another cup of coffee, a bill. To most customers, Marcus was simply the man wearing a black vest and white shirt, moving quietly between tables at the upscale Franklin House in downtown Chicago. But Marcus was more than a waiter. He was a father. He was a provider. He was a man who had learned to swallow exhaustion every morning because his 9-year-old son, Elijah, depended on him. Every night, when Marcus came home after another 12-hour shift, Elijah would be waiting at the kitchen table with his homework spread out in front of him. "You're late, Dad." Marcus would smile. "I know, buddy." "You ate?" Marcus would lie. Of course. Elijah always knew when his father was lying, but he never called him out. Instead, the boy would push half of his sandwich across the table. "Then eat this." Marcus would laugh softly. "That's yours. I can share." Those 2 words were enough to break Marcus's heart, because Elijah shouldn't have had to learn how to share food with his father. He should have been worrying about baseball practice and video games. Instead, he worried about whether his dad had eaten dinner. Marcus had been raising Elijah alone since his wife, Tasha, passed away 3 years earlier. She had been 32. A sudden illness had taken her faster than anyone expected. Marcus never talked about those final weeks. He couldn't. There were memories too painful to touch. The hospital hallway, the smell of disinfectant, Elijah asking why his mother couldn't come home, and Tasha squeezing Marcus's hand before she died. "Promise me you'll give him a good life." Marcus had promised, and every day since then he had tried. Even when the rent went up, even when the car broke down, even when his hours were cut, even when he had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying Elijah new shoes. He always chose his son. Always. The night everything changed. It was a rainy Thursday evening when a man named Daniel Whitmore walked into the Franklin house. Everyone in Chicago's business world knew Daniel Whitmore. He was 48 years old, a billionaire, the founder of Whitmore Technologies. He owned buildings Marcus had walked past without ever imagining he could afford to enter them. Daniel was the kind of man who appeared in financial magazines. People described him as brilliant, ruthless, private, and impossible to impress. That evening, he arrived alone. No assistant, no bodyguard, no business partners. He chose a corner table near the window. Marcus was assigned to him. He approached with his usual smile. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Franklin House. Can I start you with something to drink?" Daniel looked at him. "Coffee." "Absolutely. Black. Coming right up." Marcus returned a minute later. Daniel barely looked up from his phone. "Do you have the salmon?" "We do." "Bring it." "Would you like anything else?" "No." Marcus nodded. "Absolutely." He walked away. But something about Daniel bothered him. Not because the man was rude. He wasn't. He was simply distant, like someone who had forgotten how to be around people. For the next hour, Marcus served him quietly. Daniel ate alone. He checked his phone repeatedly. Once, Marcus noticed Daniel staring at an old photograph on his screen. It showed a little girl, maybe 6 years old. Daniel quickly locked the phone when he realized Marcus had seen it. Marcus said nothing. He knew what it was like to carry memories you didn't want strangers touching. The bill. At 8:47 p.m., Daniel asked for the check. Marcus brought it. The meal cost $186. Daniel placed his black credit card on the folder. Marcus returned it a few minutes later. "Thank you, sir." Daniel nodded. Marcus stepped away. He expected the usual tip. 10%, 20%, maybe nothing. He had seen everything. But when he returned to clear the table, he froze. The tip line said, "0.0." Marcus stared at it. For a moment, disappointment washed over him. Not anger, just disappointment. He had worked 12 hours. His feet hurt. His back hurt. His son needed a new winter coat. And somehow that zero felt heavier than it should have. Marcus picked up the plates. Then he noticed something underneath the dinner plate. A small folded piece of paper. He assumed it was a receipt. He almost threw it away. Then he saw his name. Marcus. His hand stopped. He unfolded it. There were only a few words. But they changed his life. I didn't leave you a tip because I don't want to pay you for being kind. I want to give you something bigger. Please call the number below when you're ready. Underneath was a phone number. And one final sentence. Your son deserves the chance you never had. Marcus stared at the note. His heart began pounding. How did this stranger know he had a son? He looked toward the restaurant entrance. Daniel Whitmore was gone. The number. Marcus didn't call that night. He didn't call the next morning either. He kept the note inside his wallet. For 3 days. Every time he opened his wallet, he saw it. Every time he looked at Elijah, he thought about it. But Marcus was cautious. He had survived too much to believe that strangers suddenly wanted to change his life. On Sunday morning, Elijah was doing homework at the kitchen table. Dad? Yeah? Do you think I could go to Lincoln Academy? Marcus stopped washing a plate. Lincoln Academy was one of the best private schools in the city. Elijah had seen it online. They have a science program, he said excitedly. And robotics. And they have this laboratory where students build real machines. Marcus smiled. That sounds amazing. I got the application. Marcus looked down. The application fee was $150. His smile faded. Elijah noticed. You don't have to pay it. Marcus turned around. Don't say that. It's okay. No, it isn't. Elijah looked at the floor. I know we don't have much. Marcus dried his hands and sat beside him. Listen to me. Elijah looked up. Never confuse having less money with being worth less. But, no, listen. Marcus pointed toward his son's chest. What's in here matters more than what's in a bank account. Elijah smiled. Mom used to say that. Marcus's eyes became wet. Yeah. They sat silently. Then Elijah whispered, I really want to go. Marcus looked at the application. He knew what he had to do. That night, after Elijah fell asleep, Marcus took out the note. He dialed the number. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then someone answered. Marcus Reed? Yes. This is Daniel Whitmore. Marcus swallowed. Why did you leave me that note? There was silence. Then Daniel said, Because I saw you. Marcus frowned. You saw me? Yes. Sir, you don't know me. I know you have a son named Elijah. Marcus stood. How do you know my son's name? Daniel took a breath. Because I asked the restaurant manager about you. Why? Because I needed to know whether I was right about you. Marcus's voice hardened. And what exactly were you right about? Daniel answered quietly. That you're the kind of father who gives everything away and tells his child he's fine. Marcus couldn't speak. Daniel continued. I know because I used to be that father. The secret behind the billionaire. Daniel asked Marcus to meet him the following morning. Marcus almost refused. But something inside him told him to go. They met at a small coffee shop. Daniel arrived wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater. He looked nothing like the billionaire in the magazines. Marcus sat across from him. What do you want? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out the photograph Marcus had seen at the restaurant. The little girl. My daughter, Daniel said. Marcus looked at him. Her name was Sophie. Was? Daniel nodded. She died 6 years ago. Marcus felt the room become quiet. She was 7. Daniel looked down at the photograph. Sophie had a rare heart condition. I spent millions trying to save her. His voice cracked. Money couldn't do it. Marcus said nothing. During her final months, she kept asking me why I was never home. Daniel rubbed his eyes. I told myself I was building her a better future. He laughed bitterly. Then she died before she got to have one. Marcus looked down. Daniel continued. After Sophie died, I started funding children's programs, scholarships, hospitals, schools. That's good. It wasn't enough. Marcus understood. Daniel looked at him. 3 months ago, I visited a community center where children were learning robotics. One of them reminded me of Sophie. He paused. Then last Thursday I saw you. Marcus frowned. Me? You were carrying a tray while talking to a little boy who had come in with his mother. Marcus remembered. He was crying because he dropped his dessert. Daniel smiled faintly. You got down on your knees, cleaned it up, and gave him your own dessert. Marcus shrugged. He was upset. You paid for it yourself. It's just dessert. Daniel leaned forward. That's exactly what Sophie used to say. Marcus didn't know what to say. Daniel reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a folder. I want to offer Elijah a scholarship. Marcus immediately shook his head. No. Daniel looked surprised. You haven't heard the details. I don't want charity. This isn't charity. It feels like it. Marcus, my son doesn't need someone feeling sorry for him. Daniel leaned back. I'm not feeling sorry for him. He opened the folder. I want to invest in him. Marcus looked at the papers. The scholarship covered tuition, books, transportation, meals, and a robotics program. It was everything Elijah had dreamed about. But Marcus still shook his head. Why us? Daniel looked directly at him. Because I couldn't save my daughter. His voice became quiet. But maybe I can help another child reach the future she never got. The condition. Marcus eventually agreed to let Elijah apply, but he refused to accept money for himself. Daniel respected that. There is one condition, Daniel said. What? Every year you tell me how Elijah is doing. Marcus smiled. That's it. That's it. Marcus agreed. 3 weeks later, Elijah received an acceptance letter. He screamed. He ran around the apartment. Dad! Dad! I got in! Marcus laughed as tears streamed down his face. Elijah hugged him. We did it! Marcus hugged him tighter. Nobody. He kissed his son's forehead. You did it. But the story wasn't over. 6 months later, something unexpected happened. Marcus was working at the Franklin house when Daniel returned. This time Daniel didn't sit alone. He brought Elijah. The boy's eyes widened when he saw the kitchen. This place is huge. Marcus laughed. Don't touch anything. Elijah smiled. Daniel watched them. For the first time in years, he looked genuinely happy. How's robotics? Daniel asked. Elijah's face lit up. I'm building a robotic arm. Daniel laughed. Your dad told me. I want to make one that helps people who can't move their hands. Daniel looked at Marcus. Marcus smiled. That's my boy. Then Daniel said something Marcus never expected. I have a proposal for you. Marcus frowned. What kind? I want to open a new community center. For kids like Elijah? For kids who don't have access to opportunities. Marcus nodded. That's great. I want you to run it. Marcus almost laughed. Me? Yes. I'm a waiter. Daniel shook his head. You're a father who raised a brilliant child while working 12-hour shifts. You know what those families need. Marcus stared at him. I don't know anything about running a center. I'll teach you. Marcus looked at Elijah. The boy was already imagining it. What's the catch? Daniel smiled. No catch. 2 years later, the Marcus Reed Community Learning Center opened on the south side of Chicago. The building had once been an abandoned warehouse. Now it contained classrooms, computers, a robotics lab, a small library, a kitchen, and a basketball court. Hundreds of children came through its doors. Some came for homework help. Some came for meals. Some came because they simply needed somewhere safe to be after school. Marcus knew every child's name. He still worked occasional shifts at Franklin House because he didn't want to forget where he came from. But his life had changed. Elijah was thriving. He won a national robotics competition at 13. When a reporter asked him who inspired him, he didn't mention Daniel Whitmore. He didn't mention the scholarship. He pointed toward the crowd. My dad. Marcus looked down. He couldn't stop the tears. The truth about the $0 tip. Years later, Marcus still kept Daniel's original note. It was faded. The edges were worn. The ink had begun to disappear, but he carried it everywhere. One evening, Elijah found it inside an old wallet. Dad? Yeah? Why did Mr. Whitmore leave you $0? Marcus smiled. He didn't. Elijah looked confused. He wrote 0 on the tip line. Exactly. Why? Marcus looked at the note. Because some things aren't meant to be paid for with money. Elijah sat beside him. What did he give you? Marcus thought about it. At first, a scholarship. And later, a job. And later, a community center. Elijah smiled. But what did he really give you? Marcus looked at his son. He finally understood. Hope. The final dinner. Daniel Whitmore passed away several years later. He left most of his fortune to children's education and medical research. But before he died, he asked Marcus to have dinner with him. They sat at the same table where they had first met. The same restaurant. The same corner. Daniel looked older. Much older. But his eyes were peaceful. Do you remember that night? He asked. Marcus smiled. How could I forget? The $0 tip? Exactly. Daniel laughed. I knew you'd hate it. I did. They both laughed. Then Daniel became serious. I need you to promise me something. What? Don't let my money become the story. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? People will talk about the billionaire who changed a poor family's life. Daniel shook his head. But that's not what happened. What happened? Daniel smiled. You changed mine. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. How? I lost Sophie because I thought success meant giving someone everything money could buy. He looked toward the window. You taught me that sometimes success means simply showing up. Marcus reached across the table. Daniel took his hand. And you showed up, Daniel whispered. 10 years later, Elijah became an engineer. He developed affordable, robotic devices designed to help children with physical disabilities. His first major project was named after his mother, the Tasha Reed Mobility Initiative. At the launch ceremony, Elijah stood beside his father. Hundreds of people filled the auditorium. Students, teachers, parents, engineers, community leaders. And at the center of the stage was a photograph of Daniel Whitmore. Elijah stepped toward the microphone. When I was 9 years old, my father was a waiter. The audience became silent. He worked long hours. He came home exhausted. But he never made me feel poor. He paused. My father taught me that dignity isn't something someone gives you. It's something you carry. Marcus wiped his eyes. Elijah continued. One night, a billionaire left my father a $0 tip. The audience smiled. But underneath the plate, he left something much more valuable. Elijah held up a copy of the old note. An opportunity. He looked toward his father. But my father didn't just accept it. He turned it into something bigger. The crowd applauded. Elijah's voice trembled. He helped thousands of children who never got the opportunity he received. Marcus stood. The applause grew louder. And for a moment, he remembered the apartment. The unpaid bills. The old shoes. The nights when he pretended he wasn't hungry. The little boy sharing half a sandwich with his father. Everything he had feared would define their lives had become part of the reason they succeeded. Marcus looked toward the ceiling. Thank you, Tasha, he whispered. Then he smiled. Because he finally understood something. Sometimes life doesn't change when someone hands you money. Sometimes it changes when someone finally sees your worth. And sometimes the smallest piece of paper can carry a message, powerful enough to change generations. Marcus had once believed he was simply a waiter trying to survive. He later realized he had been building something all along. A family, a future, a legacy. And it all began with a billionaire who left $0 on a tip line. And a hidden note that said, your son deserves the chance you never had. The lesson. Never assume that a small act of kindness means nothing. The meal you pay for, the child you encourage, the person you listen to, the opportunity you give. You may never know how far it travels. Marcus thought he was serving a billionaire dinner that night. In reality, Daniel Whitmore was serving Marcus a chance. And Marcus spent the rest of his life making sure that chance didn't stop with him. Because true wealth isn't measured by what you can keep. It's measured by what you can give. And how many lives become better because you were here. If this story touched your heart, remember, one act of kindness can change a life. And one changed life can change an entire generation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a little hope today.